Once upon a time, there was a great emperor and empress, both young, beautiful, and yearning to become parents. They visited healers and philosophers, asked to the skies if they would have children, and tried everything they could think of to be able to conceive, but all in vain. Eventually, the emperor sent for a wise old man who lived in a nearby village after learning about him. The uncle gave them remedies but warned them that although they would have a lovely and endearing child, they would only have him for a brief period of time. After taking the remedies and ignoring the elderly man's warning, the emperor and empress went back to the palace, where the empress soon became pregnant. These news brought joy to the whole kingdom, but before the baby was even delivered, he started crying hysterically and refused to be born. Despite everyone's efforts, his whine could not be soothed by any healer. The emperor then started promising him everything in the world, but he was still unable to get him to remain silent. "Be quiet, my beloved son, for I shall bestow upon you such and such kingdom. Keep quiet, my son, for I shall bestow upon you such and such emperor's daughter as a bride, and many other things of that kind." Ultimately, when he realized that he was not keeping quiet, he remarked, "Be silent, my son, for I will grant you everlasting youth and life without death." At that point the kid became quiet and it was born. The servants busied themselves with drums and trumpets whilst the kingdom was ecstatic for a week. One day, when the boy turned 15, the emperor, along with all the nobles and servants of the realm, were celebrating and feasting at the table whilst Futfrumos or Prince Charming got up and said, "Dad, the time has come for you to give me what you promised me when I was born, everlasting youth and life without death." Upon hearing this, the emperor became saddened and said, "Son, how can I give you such an unprecedented thing? If I had made a vow to you then, it was merely to appease you. Well, then I will have to travel the entire world in search of the promise I was born for, if you, father, are unable to grant it to me." Consequently, the emperor and all the nobility knelt down, pleading for him to stay at the kingdom. They explained that since his father was elderly, they would elevate him to the throne and provide him with the most stunning empress ever born as a wife. Yet, he remained unwavering in his purpose, unyielding as a stone. His father, understanding, granted him permission and made arrangements for him to gather supplies for the voyage along with everything he required. The most beautiful horses in the kingdom were kept in the imperial stables, where Futfrumos proceeded to select one. However, as he was grabbing them one by the tail to test them, he tossed them down, causing all the horses to fall. But as he was ready to depart, he took another look around the stable and noticed a frail, pockmarked, and scraggly horse in the corner. He approached the horse and, after grabbing his tail, the horse turned to face his master and said, "What are your orders, master? I give thanks to God for enabling me to live the day that a king would touch me with his sturdy hands," as he stood as straight as a candle, tensing his legs. After telling him what he intended to do, Futfrumos was confronted by the horse, who said, "To fulfill your wish, you have to ask your father for the club, spear, bow, arrow quiver, and the clothes he wore as a youngster. You also have to take care of me with your own hands for 6 weeks and give me barley boiled in milk to eat." At his son's requests, the emperor notified the court steward and gave him the order to open all the clothing trunks so that his son could select the items he needed. Following 3 days and 3 nights of searching, Futfrumos eventually found his father's old, rusty weapons and clothes at the bottom of an old chest. He was able to make the weapons gleam like a mirror in 6 weeks after removing the rust off them with his own hands, and he looked after the horse as instructed at the same time. Although it took a lot of work, he succeeded. The horse was made to be a big, strong, 4-winged horse by his mother. When he heard that the clothes and weapons had been thoroughly cleaned and prepared, he shook himself once, causing all the sores and scabs to fall off him. Futfrumos told the horse, "In 3 days we will leave." And the horse answered, "Well then, master, if you command so, I'm ready even today." The entire courtyard and the kingdom was filled with grief early on the 3rd day. Futfrumos, wearing his dad's bravery outfit, riding his brave horse, and brandishing sword, bid farewell to the emperor, the empress, and every other noble, soldier, and court servant. Tearfully, they begged him to forego this journey so he wouldn't have to risk his life. But he spurred his horse and rode out the gate like the wind, escorting provisions, money, and roughly 200 soldiers who the emperor had ordered to go with him. Once they left his father's realm and entered the wilderness, Prince Charming gave all of his riches to the troops before saying goodbye and sent them on their way, retaining only as much food as his horse could carry. He then embarked on his journey eastward, traveling for 3 days and 3 nights till arriving at an enormous field covered in numerous human bones. While at rest, the horse spoke to him, informing him that they were in the territory of the woodpecker, an evil person whose territory no one could enter and come out alive. They were ready to cross the woodland early the following morning. Futfrumos restrained the horse, pulling harder on the reins than before, and started to move when he heard a loud knocking. "Master, hold on and get ready, for here comes the woodpecker," the horse said. On her arrival, she moved so quickly that she actually knocked down the trees. The horse then ascended the wind to a point slightly above her, at which moment Futfrumos shot one of her legs. And just as he was about to kill her with another arrow, she cried out, "Hold on, Futfrumos. I will not hurt you. I promise." But when she realized he didn't believe her, she used her blood to make a written vow to him. "May your horse be blessed, Futfrumos, as mischievous as he is, as without him, I would have eaten you alive, but you got me first. Know that, up to this point, no mortal has dared to cross my boundaries this far. And the few fools who did, they barely made it to the plain where you saw the pile of bones," said the woodpecker. They made their way to her palace, where Futfrumos was lavished with attention and treated like a guest by everyone. However, the woodpecker felt discomfort as they were having dinner. He pulled out the leg he had in his bag, put it back in its place, and the injury healed right away. The woodpecker, filled with joy, threw the feast for 3 days straight, and requested that Futfrumos select one of her 3 stunning daughters as his wife, akin to a fairy tale. When he declined and revealed to her what he was looking for, she responded, "I believe you will succeed, thanks to the horse you have and to your bravery." They got ready for the trip and left after 3 days. Futfrumos traveled a long and winding route, and as he passed the borders of the woodpecker, he encountered a stunning enormous plain with greenery in blossom on one side and withered grass on the other. At which point he asked the horse, "Why is the grass burnt on one side?" And the horse answered, "This is the land of the Scorpio, the woodpecker's sister. They can't live together because of the evil they possess. Their parents' curses has taken hold of them, and that's why they have turned into the monsters you see them to be. Their enmity is terrible. They want to steal land from each other. When Scorpio is in great distress, she spits fire and tar. It seems she had a quarrel with her sister as she attempted to drive her away from her own land. The Scorpio withered the grass everywhere her sister passed. Her temper is worse than the woodpecker's, and besides, she has 3 heads. Master, let's take a little nap so we're ready for tomorrow morning," said the horse. The following day they got ready and left, as they did when they had arrived at the woodpecker's land, when all of a sudden a howl and a roar was heard. "Get ready, master, for the vicious Scorpio is almost here," said the horse. Scorpio was approaching them as swiftly as the wind, with one jaw in the sky and another just above the ground, and spitting flames. Once more, the horse leaped like an arrow just above her and landed on her side. Futfrumos blew off one of her heads with a single arrow shot. As he was about to shoot another one, Scorpio begged for his forgiveness with tears in her eyes. She offered him a signed vow made with her blood as assurance that she wouldn't hurt him. Scorpio feasted Futfrumos even more than the woodpecker did. In return, he gave her back the head he had taken off with the arrow, which immediately stuck back in place, and after 3 days they continued on their journey. They continued to cross the confines of the Scorpio until they came to a field full of flowers where spring was perpetually in the air. A light breeze was blowing. Each bloom was very bright and had a delightful aroma that could almost make you dizzy. As they were taking in all the beauty, the horse said, "We have come this far, master. We have one more challenge ahead. We must face a great danger." As they stopped to rest, "If God helps us overcome it, then we truly are strong. Ahead of us there is the palace where everlasting youth and life without death is found. It is surrounded by a dense and tall forest where the wildest animals in the world reside. They guard it day and night without rest. They are numerous and fierce. It looks it will be too hard to get through the forest as there is no way of fighting them, so we will try to hop over it if we can." After resting for a couple of days, they prepared to leave. "Master, hold the reins as tight as you can, and when you mount, hold on tightly to the stairs and my mane. Keep your feet close to my sides so you don't lose your balance during the flight," the horse murmured. In under a minute, they had reached the edge of the woodland. "Master," the horse said, "now is the time when the forest animals are fed, and they are all gathered in the courtyard. Let's go." Futfrumos answered, "Let's go, and may God have mercy on us." Ascending, they saw the palace gleaming brighter than the sun. It was impossible to look directly at it. As they passed over the forest, and just as they were about to descend to the palace stairs, they were flying so high they would barely touch the top of the trees with their feet. But suddenly the whole forest started moving. The animals were howling so loud, making your hair stand on end. They hurried to descend, and if the lady of the palace had not been outside feeding her animals, they would have certainly perished. She was relieved that they had come, as she had never seen a human soul before. She stopped the animals, tamed them, and sent them back to their homes. The mistress was a tall, graceful, lovely, and beautiful fairy indeed. When Futfrumos saw her, he was stunned. Looking at him with compassion, she said, "Welcome, Futfrumos. What are you looking for here?" "I am looking for everlasting youth and life without death," he replied. "If you seek what you have said, then you have found it," said the fairy with excitement in her voice. He then got off his horse and went inside the palace, where he met 2 more women, the elder sisters, one more beautiful than the other. He expressed his gratitude to the fairy for protecting him from harm, and they joyfully cooked a delicious dinner that was exclusively served in golden dishes. After letting the horse graze wherever it preferred, the fairy introduced the other animals to him so that they might all live in harmony within the forest. The women were tired of being alone, so they asked him to stay with them going forward. He didn't need to be asked again and gratefully accepted, as that is precisely what he was looking for. He soon fell in love with the younger sister as they gradually came to know one another by sharing their past lives and experiences. The sisters gave him permission to travel wherever he pleased with the exception of a valley they showed him, and advised him not to go there because it would be harmful to him. They additionally told him that the valley was known as the Valley of Sorrows. He spent a forgotten time there without realizing it, as he remained as young as when he first arrived. He walked through the forest without ever feeling any fear, and he was a happy man. He rejoiced in the golden palaces, lived in harmony with his wife and her sisters, and relished in the beauty of the flowers as well as the purity and cleanliness of the air. He went hunting frequently, but one day chasing a hare, he shot an arrow, missed it, and became enraged. He ran after it and hit it with a second and then a third arrow, but in his distress, the poor man failed to realize that he had stepped on the valley of sorrows while pursuing the hare. When he returned home with the rabbit, he felt a sudden yearning for his mother and father. He was afraid to reveal this to the noble women, but they could sense he was unhappy and restless. "Alas, you have ventured into the valley of sorrows," they told him, looking really scared. "My darlings, I crossed over without wishing to do so. Now I am yearning for my parents, but I can't bear to part from you either. I have been with you for a few days now, and I have no grievances to voice. I'm going to visit my parents, after which I'll come back and never leave again." "Please stay, Futfrumos. Our instincts tell us that you will die. Your parents have died hundreds of years ago, and if you go, we fear that you won't come back at all." The longing for his parents dried him up completely. Despite his efforts and their prayers, nothing was able to ease it. When all was said and done, the horse finally told him, "Master, if you do not wish to listen to me, then know that you are the sole culprit of whatever the consequences may be. I tell you this, I'll take you back if you accept my offer." With immense gratitude he answered, "I accept. Tell me, please, what is it? I will take you back to your father's palace, but if you want to stay even for an hour, I will leave you there and return," said the horse. "So be it," he agreed. They gave the women an embrace, got ready to go, said goodbye, and then departed, leaving the women crying and groaning. When they reached the locations of the Scorpio estate, they discovered cities and fields instead of woodlands. They inquired about the Scorpio and her palace, but they were told that they had heard similar tales from their ancestors. "How is that possible? I passed through here the day before yesterday," remarked Futfrumos, sharing all of his experience there. The locals teased him, acting as though he was babbling or daydreaming, and he, irritated, carried on without even realizing that his hair and beard had turned white. Arriving at the palace of the woodpecker, he asked questions as he did at the estate of the Scorpio, but he received similar answers. He was confused. He could not understand how could these places change so much in a few days. Annoyed, he left as his white beard had grown down to his waist. Arriving at his father's realm, he noticed a tremble in his legs. There were new faces and cities here, and the palaces had changed so drastically that he could no longer recognize them. At last he arrived at the place of his birth, his father's palace. As he dismounted, the horse kissed his hand and said to him, "I am returning to where I came from, master. If you wish to go with me, mount immediately and let's go. Travel well, my brave horse. I will return soon as well," said Futfrumos, and the horse left like a swift arrow. He sighed as he recalled how bright these palaces used to be and how he spent his childhood there as he looked at the ruined palace with weeds growing on it. He circled around the palace 2 or 3 times, looking at every room and every corner that brought back memories. Then he went down into the cellar, whose entrance had been covered by fallen debris. While searching everywhere, with his white beard down to his knees now and lifting his eyelids with his hands, barely walking, he only found a rotten throne and a chest. He opened it, but found nothing inside. As he lifted the lid, a weak voice said to him, "Greetings, Futfrumos. I would have died too if you had arrived any later than this." Death, all curled up like a hook, slapped him. He fell dead and turned to dust immediately. The end. The moral of this story is, you can change fate, but you cannot change destiny. While you may have the power to alter your path, your ultimate destiny is written in the stars and cannot be changed. Embrace the journey and make the most of the opportunities that come your way, for destiny will always find its trail. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this old Romanian folktale. We hope you enjoyed the enchanting journey into the world of Romanian folklore. If you found this story intriguing and would like to hear more tales like this, please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing to our channel. Your support helps us continue sharing these cultural gems with a wider audience. Stay tuned for more mesmerizing stories and folklore from Romania. Thank you for being a part of our storytelling community.